Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the 319th Operations Group Commander, Colonel Frederick F. Ruggiero, welcome to the retirement ceremony honoring Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock. The leading official for today's ceremony will be Colonel Ruggiero. I would like to welcome Master Sergeant Peacock's wife, Ann, and his children, Zachary, Tiffany, Levi, and Shay. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for Colonel Ruggiero. Please be seated. Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock is retiring from the United States Air Force after 23.5 years of service. Sergeant Peacock was born in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, raised in Santa Barbara, California, graduated from Hillsborough High School in Hillsborough, Oregon, and enlisted in the Air Force in September 1974. After completion of basic military training in April 1975, he completed technical training at Chanute Air Force Base, Illinois, as an aircrew life support specialist. Following technical school, he was assigned to the 84th Fighter Interceptor Squadron at Castle Air Force Base, California, and in June 1975, married his beautiful wife, Ann. During 5.5 years at Castle, his many accomplishments included his 5 and 7 skill level certifications, the rank of Staff Sergeant, and the Air Force Commendation Medal. Sergeant Peacock was then assigned to the 28th 49th Air Base Group, where they flew C-130, H-53, and UH-1N helicopters at Hill Air Force Base, Utah, for a period of 3 years. During this assignment, he was also awarded his 2nd Air Force Commendation Medal for helping to stand up the new theater system by verifying personal records for 7,500 active duty and retired families in 23 days. Sergeant Peacock's first overseas assignment was to Naval Air Station Keflavik, Iceland, working F-4s with the 57th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, Black Knights. In a 3-month period, during the squadron's changeover to F-15s in 1985, they supported the largest U.S. naval exercise since the D-Day invasion and maintained watch over the largest Soviet naval exercise in history. 2 years later, their next assignment was to Ramstein Air Base, West Germany, where he helped the 86th Tactical Fighter Wing with 3 complete back-to-back aircraft conversions and establishment of the U-Safety Benchmark Aircrew Chemical Defense Program. While there, he won U-Safety Life Support Unit of the Year and received his first MSM and was selected for promotion to Master Sergeant. Upon returning to the United States, Sergeant Peacock decided to try something different: Strategic Air Command, heavies. From November 1989 to August 1993, he worked with B-52s and KC-135s from the 42nd Bomb Wing, Loring Air Force Base, Maine. During the Persian Gulf War, the 42nd Bomb Wing was the lead B-52 unit assigned to Diego Garcia and led the heavy bombing campaign over Iraq. The KCs were among the first aircraft deployed to Lajes Air Base, Azores, and Sergeant Peacock went along. Not long after the war, Sergeant Peacock became the Wing Life Support Superintendent. And when the Air Force was reorganized and SAC was dissolved, he orchestrated a division of the Life Support branch and stayed with the bombers until just before Loring closed. In 1993, Sergeant Peacock was selected by Headquarters AMC Life Support to build the life support function for AMC's first super tanker wing at Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota. He arrived at Grand Forks in September 1993 and was assigned to the 905th Air Refueling Squadron, a 10 unit at that time. He then proceeded to stand up the premier operations group in the Air Force. In August 1995, Sergeant Peacock assumed his current duties as 319th Operations Group Resource Advisor, and in 1996 was named 319th Air Refueling Wing Resource Advisor of the Year. Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock will be retiring October 1st, 1998, and his family will be making their home somewhere near Columbus, Ohio. Would everyone rise for the presentation of the American? Attention to orders. Citation accompanied the award of the Meritorious Service Medal, 2nd Alt Fleet Cluster, to Paul D. Peacock. Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as Superintendent, Wing Life Support, 319th Operations Support Squadron, and Resource Advisor, 319th Operations Group, 319th Air Refueling Wing, Airforce Air Force Base, North Dakota, from 21 September 1993 to 30 September 1998. During the Wing's complex transition from Air Combat Command to Air Mobility Command, and in conjunction with becoming the nation's first 4-Squadron Supertanker Wing, Sergeant Peacock obtained vital life support and aircrew chemical defense equipment, successfully coordinated complex facility manning, contacted countless infrastructure purchases, and selflessly supported numerous improvement projects. He led the effort to procure the next generation of Aircrew I respiratory protective system ensembles and designed benchmark command lesson plans for their use. As the group commander's single financial manager and resource advisor, he ensured the prompt and successful acquisition and numerous mission essential items, to include state-of-the-art mission planning equipment, aircrew flak vests, portable air-to-ground radios, and a comprehensive computer network, while overseeing the execution of a $1.5 million budget. The superlative efforts on these endeavors led to his recognition as the 319th Air Refueling Wing's Resource Manager of the Year for 1996. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Sergeant Peacock culminate a distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. We additionally would like to take this opportunity to present Master Sergeant Peacock with the Humanitarian Service Medal.
Please take your seats for a second. As I'm sure you're all well aware, there are no official readings or words given for the Humanitarian Service Medal, but for those of you who were stationed here through March and April of 1997, certainly know the types of things that Master Sergeant Peacock is being recognized for with the presentation of this medal. As I look through and hear a little bit more about how he sort of did the record, now that you've heard what the record is, I think you see that the Air Force actually gave him some training around 1983 for the sandbagging effort that he did. But Paul could be seen just about every evening down at Sandbag Central helping out the folks during that time period. And Sergeant Peacock, we'd like to recognize you with the Humanitarian Service Award. Thank you very much. Round of applause.
Would everyone please rise for the time of our salute? Attention to orders. Special order number AC 001463, dated 31 October 97. Effective 30 September 1998, you are relieved from active duty. Organization and station of assignment, retired effective 1 October 1998 per AFI 36-3203 in grade of Master Sergeant. Active service for retirement, 23 years, 7 months, 10 days, by the order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Master Sergeant Peacock is receiving a certificate of retirement from the Air Force Chief of Staff General Michael E. Ryan and 319th Air Refueling Wing Commander Brigadier General James A. Hawkins.
If I could just take a moment to read this, to share this with you. The first one is from Brigadier General Hawkins, and General Ryan is a certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To all who shall see these President's greeting, that this is to certify that Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the first day of October 1998. And on the other side of the certificate is a letter from the Commander-in-Chief, Bill Clinton, which reads to you, I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation of our nation for your honorable service. You helped to maintain the security of the United States of America with a devotion to duty that is in keeping with the proud tradition of our armed forces. I honor your service and respect the commitment and loyalty you displayed over the years. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future, Bill Clinton, Commander-in-Chief. Congratulations.
Mrs. Peacock, will you please come forward? Mrs. Peacock will now receive her certificate of appreciation from General Ryan and General Hawkins.
We all know how important the spouses are, particularly in a mobility wing. I know Paul's gone on a couple of deployments with me when we were back in the 905th together. Now in his job as a resource manager, it hasn't gone too far, except I'm sure you thought he was TDY in his office during most of August and September as he waited for the end of the fiscal year to come. But on behalf of the Air Force and the group, I'd really like to thank you for everything that you've done in support of Paul, because we know that's important. And I'd like to give you this certificate of appreciation. It says, in grateful appreciation, United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Mrs. Gay Ann Peacock for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service. And that's signed by Brigadier General Hawkins and General Ryan. Thank you very much. On behalf of the men and women of the 319th Ops Group, we'd like to present you with a small token of our personal appreciation for everything that you've done for Paul. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Peacock will now present Master Sergeant Peacock with his retirement lapel pin. I'd now like to take this opportunity to say a few words about Sergeant Peacock.
Okay, now it's my turn. These retirements, you kids been to many retirements? These can be pretty difficult things. It's, on a serious note, it's bittersweet because there's sadness because we're losing your dad here. Really, he's reached out and he's touched a lot of folks in the Air Force during his 22 years. And he's left a lot of himself out there. And it's sad for us as an organization to have to see him go on. But it's the end of that chapter in the opening of another one. I sort of heard it described to me this way, that it was a retirement sort of like a funeral, except there's good news because at the end the guest of honor actually is invited up to speak. And we'll do that in a little bit. But you heard about Paul's successful career and all the things that he did. I'd just like to take a few minutes and sort of share with you sort of how he did those things, because you know what he did. And Paul did things outstanding while he was in the Air Force. One of the neat things you can do is go back and take a look at his record, and hopefully one day he'll open it up in the little vestige jacket there and show you what those folks thought about him when he was your age, actually, exactly, as he was coming to the Air Force. But I think it was his first assignment way back at Castle when he was working with the Interceptor Squadron, that there was a Staff Sergeant Edmund Herbst. Do you remember? Good old Ed, I guess. Mm-hmm. Well, Ed kind of picked out, I think, the one strength that Paul sort of went on and carried on throughout his career, right through my time that I was fortunate to be his commander in the 905th, and then again as his commander in the 319th Ops Group. And that's when he wrote down that Airman Peacock has the ability to determine what needs to be done. And that's just as an airman. Right away, we've got good old Ed Herbst has picked out what I think is the essence of Paul Peacock's career as you go through there. When he moved to Hill in 1980, where he's a wing-based aircrew life support specialist, there was a Tech Sergeant Sidney Howe, who wrote that Staff Sergeant Peacock by this time constantly seeks new methods to improve his job performance. So he's grown a little bit, we find out. He knows what needs to be done, and now he's figuring out new ways to get it done. And as you go through each one of these records, I'm kind of skipping a few years here, and it's a warm room, and you don't want to take all day. Heaven knows how all falls going to top. But you see this development just leap out right out at you. In 1983, when he was at Hill, this is where I was making comment of the Air Force that taught him how to sandbag. Well, Hill had a nice big flood while he was there, and he received commendation for sandbagging and working downtown with the folks there. And speaking of working downtown, that's what Paul did. That was a superb strength throughout his career, both in the church and with the Boy Scouts. I think that there's unequal performance of what I've seen from Paul's participation. Just absolutely great. Then he went up to Keflavik, Iceland, where he was supporting the F-15s up there and intercepting Bear bombers. And as you heard Tim read, that he participated in not only the largest NATO exercise, but also in the largest interceptions during Soviet naval exercise in history. And he was well recognized for that in Keflavik. As a matter of fact, by this time his supervisor was writing things like he knows where to go and how to get there, and he was the NCO officer reported twice during that time period. So his events are being recognized as he develops through his career. Then he went on to Ramstein, where he's supporting at that time the USAF's newest fighter, the F-16C. And all their activity, of course, USAF at that point is very much geared toward all the chemical warfare things, and Paul, the equipment was changing rapidly. Paul took this equipment and he devised procedures for it that were later adopted by USAF all through Europe. So I'm wondering, why we're late when we go when we got an ORI coming. If we could stay around a little bit, we could sure use them. But in that regard, Lieutenant Colonel Lewis commented that his section required virtually no supervision from me. I knew the job would be done right. And as Paul's personal commander in 2 squadrons, I can tell you that that is an absolute astute observation of Paul. That I never worried about what was happening either in the life support shop when he was in the 905th or in the resource management section of the ops group, because Paul was doing it right and was doing it well. As Tim then further said, he went over to Loring and he helped out in the heavies, and he thought, well, we'll just get ready for the big nuke war. But then Desert Storm came up, and Paul found himself deployed out of Loring into lodges where he was assisting in the life support for the tanker air bridge. And that's our business, and we know what that's all about. But the tankers, the 135s and the KC-10s, as they translated through the lodges for that whole time period. So he played a very integral part in the success there. The one thing that the supervisor wrote when he was at Loring was, while other bases are asking for waivers for implementing new hands-on training, Master Sergeant Peacock has a program full up with 90% of the crew force training. That's typical of Paul, well ahead. Not looking for excuses on how you can't do it, but he's already got it figured out with everybody else. And then he came here, and we had basically just a tenant unit. Not a lot, with 4 squadrons coming online. And I think I can recall very clearly the first day Paul came in the office. I think he had an order sheet in one hand. I thought he was the resource manager then, because of all this millions of dollars he was asking me for to fund his life support program, and this was the most important thing we were going to do. And he was absolutely right. We invested the right amount of money, and we bought all the life support, and we got everything stood up. He brought the night vision goggles and everything to the 906 for a special ops mission, and he has played a very key role in standing up this whole ops group. As you look back at some of the records of the ops group, not to ignore or not to overlook at all his personal accomplishment as the resource manager of the year for the base in '96. The Controller Squadron was the best Controller Squadron in the Air Force in '97. They couldn't get that way if it wasn't for folks like Paul out there doing the stuff in the units, working right with the folks at the grassroots level. But then you look at what the group has done, 3 SPAS trophies, outstanding OSS. The ops group could not have done that if we were bankrupt. We could not have done that if the money wasn't going in the right places at the right times, keeping all the commanders out of trouble, and that's why you see a lot of squadron commanders here on the call today. He kept us out of trouble, and kept me out of trouble as a squadron commander than as an ops group commander. So, your dad's had an extremely successful career, and we're going to miss him, and there are a lot of folks in the Air Force that are going to miss him because, as you've heard, he's reached out and he's touched a lot of lives. So to mark the presentation, at this occasion, we'd like to present you all with a shadow box from the ops group staff that has the names of all of your assignments listed and all the ranks and your decorations. The flag was flown above the Capitol on the 27th of May, 1998 at the request of Senator Conrad. So with all thanks and gratefulness, we wish you the best of luck.
Boy, it's been a long time since I heard about some of the things that the Colonel was talking about. I can remember very clearly my trip to basic training. Early in our lives, my wife and I, before I got into the Air Force, we decided that we were going to be married, and we decided that in order to be able to do the kind of things that we really wanted to do, we had to have a way to earn a living that would support our family. And I got to go into basic training and did my tech school training, and then as soon as I got to my first base at Castle, I was there for 2 weeks and took some leave, and we got married. So she's been with me literally through my whole career, and we've been happily married for 23 years now. And I can say happily married and mean it. I can't think of a time that we have had any real problems with our marriage or any real dissension or anything that would really cloud our horizon. And I'm looking forward to another lifetime ahead with her. And I do appreciate everything that you've done to support me in my career. One of the things that I kind of like to get across as far as a piece of advice for the people that I'm leaving behind is you need to decide now, you need to decide early whether your family is to support your career or whether your career is to support your family. And you need to make your family the most important part of your life. I know there's a lot of people who are very dedicated to their career and dedicated to advancement, but the Air Force, if something happened to you today, next month, they have somebody else filling your position, and that's a position in your family that can never be filled. And I appreciate all of my family, my kids especially. There's been some times in my career that weren't a lot of fun. There's been some times that I was taken away from my family for long periods of time, or continually throughout a period of time. And there's certain times when they were places that they probably wouldn't have chosen to be. But they supported me in my assignments, and they supported me in the things that I needed to do and allowed me to do the things that I was able to do in my career, and to be able to get as far as I have been able to. And I appreciate those things. I have some things for my children that I'd like to give them as a Tiffany. This is for you. Thank you. Boys. This is something that kind of means a lot to me. I was originally given a wind coin from Colonel MacArthur, my first boss as a resource flag here, and it was given to me for an outstanding achievement that he considered that I'd done in the operations group here, and it meant a lot to me during the time that I was serving in the operations group. And there's one for each of you as a memento for my career. And thank you. Those of you get a chance to look at the flag box later, you notice a life support coin. That was one of those things that after 20 years in life support. I really enjoyed being an airman, being a technician in life support. I really enjoyed working with the equipment and getting out on the flight line and training crew members and just being one-on-one. And I did 15 years in fighters before I came into the heavies, and by the time I'd finished 15 years in fighters, I was ready to leave fighters. There's only a certain amount of time that you can really spend with a fighter pilot before they get on your nerves. But I really enjoyed my time working with the equipment. As I increased in rank, got into the more management level and more administrative positions, I got to like it less and less. And I still appreciated the chances that I had to get in and do some QA or do some staff assistance visits and really get in and play with the equipment. But the paperwork just really got to me, and the personnel, setting the schedules and all that kind of thing, it started to kind of wear on me. Sam, I'll tell you, face to face, when you first got here, I had a chip on my shoulder because I was being taken away from my position. And it was, you know, the Air Force kind of breeds this competition into everybody. You know, you've got to strive to be the top person. You've got to keep striving for promotions and everything. And I felt that at that particular point that something was being taken away from me. Looking back on the last 3 years as a resource advisor, I don't think there's anything that could have happened to me that would have been better for me at that time. I appreciate the opportunity I've had to work as a resource advisor and to really get into something that I really love. And I'm just sorry that after 3 years, I'm getting high year tenure in the Air Force and saying I gotta go. And I really wish I could stay and do this for a while longer. Hopefully I'll be able to get back into something that I can love as much as I do the job that I'm doing now. I appreciate all the things that the military's done for me. Like I said, I can't say that it's all been fun. I can't say that it's all been interesting, but it has definitely been an experience that I wouldn't do without. And I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. Those of you who are here as friends of mine from church, my time here, some of you may not know this, but for the past year, I've had the opportunity to serve as a bishop for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints downtown. And that's been a real growing experience and an opportunity that I had to really get in and deal with the needs and desires of the people that I serve with. And to get a little bit better with the management and the organization that I was kind of shying away from in life support. It's been a wonderful experience to do that. And I've got so many friends that I just really hate to leave from here. But the way it looks, everybody's leaving anyways. So that's the thing that happens with the military. There's a constant change in your life, and that's the only thing you can really depend on is the fact that it's going to change. I appreciate everybody coming out today, and I appreciate all the things that you've done for me. There was a lot of things that the Colonel said that I was responsible for this or I was responsible for that, and most of those things I had a part in. Maybe I was the one that made the decision as far as which way we were going to go with something. But in most of those cases, it wasn't me that was doing all that stuff. It was people that worked for me or people that worked with me. And I've got to thank everybody that I've worked with through the years for the things that I've been able to accomplish. And it's been from their support and from the support of good leaders that's allowed me to do the things that I have. And I appreciate you all coming out today. And again, you know, there's a dinner tonight at Jim Good Ribs at 6 o'clock. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you there. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the retirement ceremony honoring Master Sergeant Paul D. Peacock. Please extend your congratulations to Paul and his family and stay and join us for cake and refreshments. On behalf of the operations group and Master Sergeant Peacock, thank you for attending and showing your support. As now the Peacock family graduates into civilian life.